We have with us today Mr. Akinwunmi, the governorship candidate in Lagos State. He's running under the platform of the National Rescue Movement. Welcome to SaharaTV, Mr. Braithwaite.
Thank you.
To start with, we want to get your assessment of the presidential election. There are a wide range of violence and people raising concerns about the credibility of the beavers. Do you have any fears this might repeat itself in the governorship election?
Sadly, yes. I think we were all surprised by the fact that so much went wrong with the election, particularly as our expectations had been raised so high. I guess, all expected that having introduced the BVAS and the whole electronic uploading and all of that, we would see less propensity for either violence or even fraudulent activity. I was rather taken aback, though, that we could still be witnessing things like ballot snatching. I think that also demonstrates the extent to which folks were a bit illiterate about really the changes that had happened, because we had been made to understand that where there are instances of ballot snatching, that really defeats. You can't snatch the ballot and then go and stuff it with the voters' padded voter slips, as it were. So I think that the generality of people were really surprised at the level of instances or alleged instances of also results being changed and altered, manual changing. And of course, once there was no upload directly from the polling unit, it gave the opportunity for all sorts of things to go wrong, either real or imagined. As to whether we might see this in this forthcoming election, sadly, again, I say yes, because nothing has happened to dissuade people from doing what they did in the last election. If, for example, there had been some kind of swift justice or whatever, then you could say, all right, people are going to, there's a disincentive for people to do what they did. I hope I'm wrong, but nothing to me indicates that there's any reason why we shouldn't see a repeat. And the stakes are quite high.
So what do you think might be done, maybe by the security operatives, to curb these?
There were, at least we saw video clips of instances where there were security people right there, and certain things were still happening. Boxes were still being taken. So again, it depends on to what extent the security folks themselves are really truly interested. You see, the way I see this, where we are today, I think it's also a function of who we are as a people. Whether you're security or, a civilian, everything boils down to really what you want for your society. If as a security man, you are only interested in getting some kind of inducement and some money to do the wrong thing and to look away, if you could line up 100 security men at a polling unit and things would still go wrong if they have been induced and they're happy to be induced. So to a large extent, I have been saying this for some time now, that as a society, we as a people need to rethink about our ethical values. Once ethics are out of a society and the way society and the ethos of a society, you will find that people have a propensity to just do the wrong things. But if we're guided by and we're driven by this idea that do what is right because it is right, don't do what is wrong because it is wrong, that's ethics. I'm sad to say that there's a very, very serious lack of ethics broadly across society. So yes, we will still appeal to the security agencies that they need to do what they should do, which is stop people from getting into acts of violence and defrauding the system. As to whether they will listen and as to whether they care enough, that's another question. So
let's go to your campaign. Been to places in Lagos, many places in Lagos. During this your campaign, what are the things you saw that really moved you that something needs to be done, something needs to be fixed in Lagos?
Well, again, in broad view, a number of places that I'd been to, I was surprised at the level of lack of development in what we might call Lagos of today. In 2023, you're still seeing places that are not too far from the main road. You're talking about the urban setting, and you still see all these roads that are broken, roads that are not tarred. You still see people who clearly are poverty-stricken. And beyond that really was that an encounter with some of these people was also the mindset that they had. Sadly, again, and I've used that word sadly so many times, the experience was one of people are not interested in listening to really what you have to say. They want their money. Oh yes, Mr. Politician, here you are. Okay, we've heard it all before. Just give us whatever you have for us here and now, and we're not even sure we're going to go vote. We're not even sure our votes will count. I think even what happened in the last election may even demonstrate to some people that there's now a big question mark. Are the votes counting? And the votes that have been reflected, are they reflective of exactly what the people have asked for? So that's a big question that still needs to be answered. So yeah, the experience with people on the ground is one of people who have been deprived. And to that extent, mentally, I'm not so sure that they are really that interested. They're really that engaged in what we are doing for the sake of, even for them. I don't think that the generality of the populace really truly believe that this is all a process that is in their own interest. And you will also see from the statistics that came out, I think it was maybe roughly on average, about 25% of those who even collected their PVCs came out to vote. That is worrying. That is very, very worrisome. And it also tells me that the people are disconnected from this process.
If you are elected by the people, if the people give you the mandate to lead Lagos State, what are the main things you intend to tackle from day one in office?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Let me answer it by giving you a picture of other countries. Where we look at the UK, United States of America, for example. The US is probably the world's largest capitalist country. And what is of interest is that even in such a country, they recognize the need to look after the disadvantaged people. So in the US, you have what is called food stamps. You have the safety net. In the UK, you have the safety net. And what these things are, essentially, are the looking after of people who are in the deprived layers, people who don't have livelihood. And that is, for me, a top priority of governance. And like in Braithwaite government, dispensation would really be about ensuring that we take care of the people. In terms of, we have to look at full employment. So there will be a program will be rolled out immediately to start tackling this issue of unemployment. We have too high a rate of unemployment. And you see, there's a correlation between high unemployment, crime. The higher unemployment gets, the higher your crime rate. Unemployment, homelessness. Unemployment, is linked to the idea of mental health issues. So if we don't solve for the unemployment, we will have all of these ills of society with us. And unemployment is in essence, you're excluding people from legitimate economic activity. If we don't include people and the youth in economic activity, they will find illegitimate economic activity to get involved in, because people have to survive. So that for me is a topmost priority. And then linked to it would also be, because it's almost like two sides of a coin, it would also be unemployment benefits. Because if people cannot get employed, we have right now roughly about 50% youth unemployment. That means for every 100 youth, 50 of them are unemployed. And then that's not to speak of the ones that are underemployed. So it's important that we also look at the fact that if people are trying to get work, livelihood, and they cannot, then the government, our government, must provide people with unemployment benefits, because that way you look after the stomach infrastructure. You can't allow and afford for people to wake up every day and they have no means of feeding themselves. The statistics, again, government statistics have shown us that we have multidimensional poverty, and there are too many people living in multidimensional poverty. So that is a major priority. Even if we build roads, bridges, and we don't take care of people's stomachs, we will have a society that is leaning more towards an uprising. So we've got to take care of that. That's the topmost priority. Along with that too will then come the issue of enterprise. We would have to make sure that we are pushing very, very quickly this program of helping cottage industries. Cottage industries are small businesses, small startups that have a few people engaged in specific sectors of the economy. That way too, it then also addresses the issue of job provision. It addresses the issue of helping people to be able to energize and to build a society where you can then have economic growth. Economic activity, buzzing, it leads to economic growth, leads to a happier society. A society where everybody is now involved in, and then things become more cohesive. So I call this the easy agenda, which is E for employment, E for enterprise, S, social services, I for infrastructure. Those will be our go-to approach to administering this state.
One of the items listed is a local government that works for you. How do you intend to achieve things in relation to local government autonomy? So how do you intend to achieve that?
Yeah, so if you look at enterprise and ensuring that we can grow enterprises, this essentially starts at local government level, because in every local government you have all the things that are required in society. That's where you create the demand. That's where you consume the things that are produced. So we would look at ensuring that we take each local government and look at what is the GDP of that local government. Then you now look at that and you say, look, you need to encourage the local government to grow its GDP, its even internal generated revenue. And you can do that by stimulating local businesses. And these local businesses would be in different, you have little manufacturing going on. That's what we call cottage industries. So the cottage industry is at the local government level. And within that local government arena, what you then have is that you have incubators. These are places where people can go and find professional services. Because imagine you have a startup. Not everybody within that startup knows about accounting. Not everybody knows about legal. Not everybody knows about all these consulting things. So you have an incubator which will provide those services to all the startups within that locality, sponsored by the government. So the government will be paying those professionals, and those professionals will in turn deliver the professional services that will keep those small enterprises moving ahead. On the principle of, you've heard of too large to fail, we would be looking at it from the point of view of too small to fail. That means you cannot afford for your small businesses to fail. They must be supported, and if you're supporting them with the grants, with loans, soft loans, and with professional service support, there is every reason why over 80% of them will survive. As they're surviving, they're adding more staff, because as they grow, then they're helping to solve the employment issues. The autonomy of the local government enables the local government to work within what is unique to that local government, to ensure that if it's a local government where there's a lot of water, you encourage fisheries. So that way, most of the people there are now working into that ecosystem where you can now provide different things along that value chain. Some of them can be making nets, some of them can, they can do manufacturing that will now be pulled by the different businesses that are going on there. If it's another area where there's a lot of people who are very artistic and all that, you again encourage arts and crafts within that locality. And then you direct tourism, and people are going there to go and buy these arts and craft things. So very, very, very basic things can be done at that kind of layer, and that you encourage fashion and all that, and then that kind of grows as well. The tourism starts to explode within that area. That particular local government is generating revenue through tourism. And then you can start help encourage some hotels and all these hospitality things to be positioned. So if it's a Badagry area, for example, you build the tourism around that local government area where there was slavery and all that. You create that and you let it be a real exploding tourism area. Urban farming. A place like Ikorodu, for example, you encourage people to get into urban farming. They don't need big, big, large farms. You have all these things now in these modern times that are vertical farms where people do not need to grow just horizontally. You can have things that are growing vertically. So less space, and then the government aids people to do that. So there's a lot that you can do through unlocking the local government, making sure that the local government is accountable to its local business. And then you center the concentration of the local government on creating business, helping businesses to grow.
So you've talked about grants, stomach infrastructure, encouraging small-scale business. So the question now is, where do you intend to get the fund to fix all of this?
It may shock you to know that even in the government budget, there's a line item which is there for intervention. They call it the intervention. But the issue is the priority really being pushed in that direction? Yes, you will hear about a few things that are being done in intervention, but it's not nearly as large as it should be. But then we look at other areas of the budget, and then you say, I think we can reallocate this fund, because it's a question of, why are you spending money so much on vehicle licensing, whatever it is, when that money can be really productive and go into these productive things to get production really, really going. So there are instances where if you juggle the budget around, what I tend to say to people is that, you see, government and governance is really about priorities. One, A, believes that it's going to run this way and these are the priorities. B believes that no, these are the priorities. It is what you consider to be your priorities that will drive how you allocate your budget. So for me, for my administration, the emphasis and the real priority is about what can help our people to get up and really start to become more and more productive, effective, and develop faster. And that's how we will allocate the budget. In addition to that, you will hear that, Lagos State borrows, has the largest number of borrowing and whatever. You can actually borrow if you're also borrowing for the production. of the business. So as we direct our people to become more productive, the borrowings will go towards that direction, and certainly will feed back, because as people are now getting involved in all these productive cottage things, they're generating revenue that is coming back into the government coffers that we will use to repay, the loans. There are also grants. There are what you call multilateral grants, multilateral aid. There are different countries that would be happy to plug into our program because they already have those kind of arrangements in place. We will also plug in funds from there. As long as, the funds are not being stolen, you will see the funds will come in and they will be directed to these items that I have mentioned, and the society is better off for it.
Let's have your take on the security architecture of Lagos State. Do you think Lagos State is well secured, looking at people talking about area boys, all these abuse, RRS, intimidating the citizens, even the traffic police, extorting the people? Do you think the security architecture of Lagos State are well fixed? And if not, how do you intend to tackle this?
Great. If you analyze what you have just said, so it's not that you don't have the security agencies around. Everywhere you look, almost every corner of Lagos, you see security guys holding AK-47s, you'd think we were in a war zone. Incidentally, I've had some police training, so I pretty much understand this whole idea of security. It is my view that we have enough security around us. But as you have also alluded to, even the security guys are extorting, money. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the problem? That means that there's a deeper problem. If you have guys who are equipped with guns and whatever, and they're all around us, and we're still feeling this level of insecurity, then it tells you that even they may be constituting a problem. So what is the root cause? In observation over the years, it's very, very clear to me that the root cause of why these security guys behave the way they do is down to their remuneration. If you put people who are earning, let me say for the sake of argument, the guy is earning 30K a month, and his food bill is already 20K a month, leaving him with very, very little in his pocket to look after his family affairs, then there's a problem. Because what you have just done is you've told the guy, look, you're on your own. These guys buy their own uniforms, they buy their boots. In some cases, we hear that they even buy bullets. So you have created a problem. And that problem is that the guy has to fend for himself. He has to make up the difference. So he gets out there and is looking for every opportunity to make up that difference. In other climes, what happens is that those guys that are your security apparatus are very well remunerated. They are looked after, they are cared for. Their welfare is paramount. And so when they go out and they do their job, they're very, very well motivated. They're very, very well sorted. So if we want to be serious about this, we have to re-look and review the remuneration structure that these guys are having. We review it properly. Now, we can't say, for example, in Lagos State, you can't review what the IG, the federal police, are earning. But what we could do is to come into some agreement with the Police Service Commission and say, gentlemen, we want to have something which is called Lagos weighting. Put a weight on the remuneration of these guys. We see Lagos as a very, very complex place. So if and when they come into Lagos, they immediately have an additional element, towards the allowance. You could call it a Lagos allowance. That way, we believe that you will address immediately the issue of the propensity for them not to have enough. So by us providing for them and providing. There's a Lagos Security Trust Fund, which actually pumps a lot of money into all these equipment things and all of that. So I think that if we take care of the human side of it and make sure that all of those guys, it's a transparent thing. Look, how much are they earning? What can we give? Because Lagos is an expensive zone. And if that's agreeable, and I don't see why it shouldn't be, that's a low-hanging fruit that we can deal with very, very immediately. Once we do that, those guys are pumped up. They're ready. They will have less of a propensity to start extracting, 500 naira and all that kind of stuff from people on the street.
So on a final note, what is your message to the citizens of Lagos as they go out to vote? What should they look out for? And if peradventure you happen not to be elected on Saturday, will you be willing to work with the incoming administration?
Good question. What I'd like people to recognize about politics and governance is that we all must have a desire. As human beings, we must have something that we want to happen to our environment. And to that extent, what are your top issues and your top priorities? Align with where you find your top issues and priorities. And that's what you should vote for. As opposed to saying, like people normally say, who is likely to win? Let me just vote for whoever is likely to win. When you do that, you are in effect saying that you don't have your own desires. You don't have a clear-cut agenda of where you think things should go. So first and foremost, you must consider where you stand in terms of the societal issues. If you truly believe that unemployment is something that is a major ill, then vote for an agenda that is going to deal with unemployment and as a serious issue. If you believe that people should not be sleeping underneath the bridges and they shouldn't be in this state of homelessness and whatever, vote the agenda that is going to help to drive and sort that out very, very quickly. So once you've found what your issues are, vote for those issues. Because even if I do not win, what you're saying in effect is there are two things that your vote is saying. One is if I get into the seat, then I need to execute those plans that are your plans. Or if I don't get into the seat, then I need to advocate for because if the problem remains after election, then there is a need to keep advocating to make sure, and that's what political parties are meant to be doing. A political party that is in opposition, its job is to take the issues and keep pounding those issues, as long as it's got people who have voted for it. Because their votes is the mandate to that party to say, this is where we stand, this is what we believe in. Therefore, we want you to keep advocating to make sure that these things happen. Because a political party in opposition can sponsor bills. It's its duty to hold the government's feet to the fire. It's its duty to ensure corporate governance in the sense of what's really going to ask pertinent questions about government. It's its duty to point out where government is going wrong and to make sure that it is fighting for the right. It's its duty to educate, the polity. So if I do not win, then my role would be to work to ensure that, yes, government, whichever government, is moving along the agenda and closer and closer and closer to the agenda that we have laid out. And to say, government, no, you need to sort out the unemployed. Government, you need to sort out social services. And that will continue to be, effort would have to be put behind that over and over again. If we find that government wants to work with us in that dimension, then definitely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akinwunmi Braithwaite, Lagos governorship candidate under the Party of the National Rescue Movement. I will wish you the best of luck as you head to the polls on Saturday. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.